Hi guys, this is Katja with Creatives Image Studio. This is just a short announcement that I am trying to broaden my horizons, creatively speaking, and that means that I am studying Tim Holtz's techniques with his inks and his paints and his oxides and stamping and die cutting and all of those nice things. Specifically aimed at making backgrounds that you can later elaborate on. Today I will be sharing the first batch of backgrounds that I have done, and well, if you follow my blog, I will post the materials that I used and write some small explanations on how to make those, and that should be enough, especially if you have watched the videos of Tim himself or if you are an experienced crafter yourself. So let's go on to my first batch of backgrounds. Alright, so first off, let me show you the basic materials, the papers that I worked with. So I had three kinds of tags. I had the distress tags, which are a mixed media heavy cardstock, and it will take and give ink and paints and all kinds of mediums very well. And it is also designed especially to be wet and re-wet multiple times and dried in between and wet again, etc., etc. And it will remain, well, sturdy as it were. These are a bit more affordable, also by Ranger. These are the Manila tags size 10. Also a heavyweight cardstock, but well, not especially designed for mixed media, so it will react slightly differently to all of these mediums and inks, etc. And also the color difference is significant, as you can see. So this is almost white, and this is more of a vanilla color. And then these I also had in my stash, and this is the same tag but then in black, and the giant ones, so the size 12. So these are the tags that I used as a base. Now I started with some inks and some paint and some distress micro glaze. So I did some stenciling, and I did different layers, and did some distress resist spray in between. And that is why it is so glossy. And I just followed several of the steps that Tim Holtz demos on his blog. So check out my blog if you want the details. So these were the first two. I like the color palette, and well, it was fun to start. Then I moved on to some texture paste, which is also by Ranger. I think Tim Holtz now has a Tim Holtz brand, but it's the same texture paste. I just had this in my stash still. And well, I did some stenciling here and then sprayed some colors onto it and then splattered some colors. Or actually I dabbed it like that in some puddles. And the texture paste I like a lot because when it's dry, it reacts like paper. So it will take color, and it also will give up color if you want to absorb it again with some kitchen towel or something, some paper towel. So very nice to work with. So I did it again with a different stencil and different color palette. So this is more of my grungy attempt here, and I ended up spraying it with some distress mica spray in silver. I think it's called brushed pewter, if I pronounced that correctly. I'm not sure actually, but I like it. It's my first attempt at doing some grunge. Then I moved on to some texture paste, but this time glossy. So this will dry white and matte. And they also have a glossy one, and it dries transparent, and it reacts differently because it reacts as a resist. So I first sprayed it with different kinds of ink, different colors I mean, then did the stenciling with the glossy paste, so it would in effect seal those colors underneath. And then I sprayed with a different inks or oxides actually, and then wiped the leaves here. So you get this really great subtle effect. I like it a lot. but it's different than the matte texture paste. So I went back to the matte because I really liked that it is not a resist. Now this has some shimmer to it, some gloss as well. That is not Distress Resist Spray, but that is Distress Embossing Glaze. So first I inked it, then I did the texture paste, and before the texture paste dried, I sprinkled it with, I think, 5 different colors of Distress Embossing Glaze. So coloring with the powders, like, you know, just moving your fingers in different colors. And then when the texture paste had dried, then emboss it, so heat emboss it. And then you get this, this shimmer. Now apparently I spilled a lot of the powder in between, so it's in between, it's glossy as well. So I have to practice with the embossing glaze, but I like the effect. And this also was one of the techniques that Tim Holtz suggested, although in hindsight I think he suggested it with Distress Grit Paste, which I also have, and he used a translucent one which will give you a greater color effect, so I will have to experiment with that as well. And then I moved on to one of the Manila tags. So these are larger, as you can see, and this is the vanilla colored one. Different techniques altogether. This was the using the distress paint as a resist. So I stamped with paint. That is the stamp here in the color Antique Linen. So the off-white color there underneath. So stamping with paint, which I enjoyed a lot. And then inking with a blending tool and then stamping over it with archival ink. And I did some stenciling in the corner here with ink and with paint here, the Antique Linen again. And then I sprayed just the corner with Distress Mica spray, and this time in the copper color. I forget what it's called. I think it's Antiqued Bronze or Tarnished Brass. I think Tarnished Brass. And then I did some stamping here as well. So, oh, and here the smaller stamp I did with paint as well. So I like that you can layer with your stamps this way and just ink all over it, and it will resist. The paint will resist the ink. So this is my favorite in this first batch. And then I moved on to the black large tags, which I started off cutting in half to get these smaller pieces. Now this is a lot thinner. As I said, it is heavyweight, but not as heavy as the distress tags. So that is really the difference with the mixed media heavy stock. So you see this is still straight. And this one, well, it can be straightened out, but it's thinner and it doesn't take the inks and the paints as well as the heavy stock does, but still. So this is a black base, and yet I did some marbling here, and I used paint for that. So these are distress paints which are designed to react with water in a specific way, to wick and blend, and I played around with that, and I like the effect, I have to say. I can imagine myself doing some galaxy like backgrounds with another color palette, but then the black would be great, adding some white spots and splats to suggest the stars. Well, I'll have to play a lot with that. Another smaller one, so this is still the large tag, but then I cut off the sides from the other half, so it was in fact like this. And I used some Distress Oxide sprays here, because oxide is supposed to be visible even on dark backgrounds, and so it is. So I used Fossilized Amber and Wild Honey. But this is not my favorite, I have to say. I find the colors a bit pale, a lot paler than they are on white cardstock. So, but I am keeping this because it will be a nice background, no doubt, for something in the future that I haven't thought of yet. But this was my least favorite. But it was great to play around. I used the shifter stencil here by Tim Holtz. So you first do the one color and then you shift the stencil and do the other color, and it gives this great bi-colored effect. Then I thought, let's do an entire large tag. So here I worked with a Studio Light stencil, so a masking stencil actually. So let me show you. So it was this one. So it's not a stencil with the holes, but it's the other way around. So you put that on your substrate and then you do your thing. And here I did not use the Tim Holtz Distress line, mainly because of this one. I thought, I do want to spray with inks because this was paint. I do like this one, but this was paint, and I wanted to spray, but I did not like the Distress Oxide sprays. It's just too pale for me. So then I went to my stash, and there I found my Prima Marketing Color Bloom spray set. Now these are all shimmery mica sprays in different colors. So I used those, and I have to say I really like that effect. So I like the shimmer it gives, the metallic look. And I also like the colors. I chose, I think, 2 or 3 different kinds of purple and eggplant and those things. And then this bronzy brown. I think it's called worn leather, that color. But look at how great this turned out. So I really like that. So the Prima Marketing Color Bloom will be my choice, I think, for if I want to spray inks onto dark backgrounds. And they are also very well pigmented. So it's not just a sheer shimmer, but it's actually colored, as you can see. So I did another one, but cut it in half again. So this was one tag, but now I did some monoprinting. So first I did some stenciling, and here I used, I think, 3 colors again. So a bit of a gold color, and some bluish color here. You don't really see that it's blue, but it is. And then I sprayed a mist of some purple over it as well. So a nice clear-edged, sharp stencil pattern. And then you can imagine that your stencil is full of ink, right? You put it on your paper, you spray, and then when you lift it off, this side is full of ink. So I decided to try a monoprinting, which means that you take another piece of paper, clean one, and then you just flip over the inked up stencil and press it down, but use a paper towel because the ink will, you know, go all over the place. So place a paper towel and then press. Now, these don't give you as sharp lines as the other. This is a lot cleaner edged, as you see, but still, this is very usable as a background, in my opinion. So I decided to do it again because I like the technique. So different stencil, different color theme, although with the mica shimmers you don't actually see a lot of difference, I think, with this color, but these are more of the yellows and the oranges, whereas these were gold and blue. But anyway, this is the stencil, so sprayed through the stencil. It's not as clear as this one, I think, because it has more detail, so more smaller openings, and the ink will just creep underneath and make it sort of a blob here. But still, I like it. You can see it's a bit Mediterranean or Middle Eastern even, maybe Greek. I like that pattern. So this was the stencil, and then I did some monoprinting again, and then I decided to do it up as a card. So it's no longer just a background, but I actually created a card. So this was the monoprint. So strangely enough, the monoprint is clearer. It has more details and more sharpness. And yeah, I chose to do it up in black and white. So even though these shimmery colors are a bit of reddish, orangey gold, it's still light enough, I thought, to work with white accents. So what I did here is stamp 3 things. So a sentiment here, and then here sort of a label, and this is a cup of tea. And then I embossed it with white embossing powder to give an extra clear and sharp effect. And I die cut a lot of leaves, and I used photo paper to die cut from, because photo paper is glossy. So I liked that glossy paper. It was very sophisticated, I think, gives an elegant effect. And then I just added some small flowers and added a ribbon. Now this is tea themed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it out to my friend Krista, who I always send some tea after she comes home from her vacations and her long road trips. And I try to come up with different ways to send her some tea every time. So this is the newest that I came up with. So what I'm going to do is on the back here, I will just tie a bag of tea, like here. It's a white bag, and I will fill it up with fresh tea and just knot it here. And then just write welcome home here in probably some silver or gold gel pen. And yeah, so then she will have this card and some fresh tea when she comes home. So that is my plan with this card. But look how great that is as a card. I could, of course, also have backed it up with some white cardstock or some colored cardstock, whatever. But I thought it was very fitting if I did my own inking to keep it, you know, keep it a bit wild and raw, as it were. So yeah, so my aim is with all of these backgrounds to be able to do more with them. So this may go into a mini album perhaps, or I can fold it in half and do a booklet. I can add some metal elements. Here I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure, but to add a sentiment with a time theme, time for ... fill in the blank. This is, of course, a great autumn background, and you can add anything you like to it. Well, again, with a time theme. So a lot of possibilities. This one, my favorite, I may even leave it as is. So not just a background, but the finished art. And I think I may even maybe hang it on my wall or something. It is one of my first projects after all, and I really like how it turned out. So those were the distress inks and paints, and also the Prima Marketing mica shimmer sprays in the Color Bloom line. And I also did some alcohol inking, which is a completely different technique, and I put them in my book. Now this is my notebook that I dedicated to all of my Tim Holtz studies, as it were. So I just watched all of his demos and then wrote, because it was a lot of information. Look, oh. So much so, I did my alcohol ink backgrounds and put them with some repositional tape into my book. So that is what I'm going to show you. But first, the substrate that I worked on, the paper, I used Yupo paper. Now, Yupo is not really a paper in the sense it's not made from wood, but it is a plastic. But it feels like paper, and it reacts a lot like paper in the sense that you can die cut it, and paint on it, stamp on it, and most importantly, you can alcohol ink on it, because plastic is non-porous and alcohol inks are designed for non-porous surfaces. So you can also ink glass or any other kind of non-porous surface, but if you want anything like paper, you can use Yupo. Now I'm showing you these two because they are different brands, and then you have 1,000 other brands, and there really is no difference. So just find the most affordable or the best quality, anything that you like, and then use that. So these are my backgrounds, and these are what I started with. So I really like how those turned out. So it's a bit of the marbling effect that I also did with the distress paint, but well, richer in color, I think, and more finely detailed. Well, it's ink after all, it's a lot thinner. So the second page here, full of backgrounds. And what I did is I took a piece of Yupo. This is in A4 size, but just to let you know what I did, I just cut it in half like this and then cut 3 parts. So 1, 2, 3. So I had 6 of these square shapes from 1 sheet of Yupo because I'm only a beginner, so I don't want to mess up an entire A4. So experimenting with smaller pieces, and I have to say I really like those. So therefore I used repositional tape. So whenever I want, I can just take these off and then do them up. So these again are backgrounds, and I can still do a lot with them. I can do some stamping, and I can do alcohol lifting, which is another technique with the alcohol ink line. I can write onto them. I can put a picture on them. Well, backgrounds, as I say. So they will probably end up as cards, or maybe as bookmarks here, as tags in a mini album. Endless possibilities. So that was with the Yupo, and then I decided, you can hear my guinea pigs, I think. They think I had a snack, but I just went and got these. These are the Manila tag, so cut it in half and then alcohol inked those. Now, Manila tags are, of course, not non-porous. So what Tim Holtz teaches in one of his alcohol ink demos is you can first treat your substrate if it's not non-porous and make it non-porous. So in this case, I gessoed it. Just take any kind of gesso and treat your surface and then do the alcohol ink. I have to say, it does react differently than the Yupo. The Yupo is smoother, so it will give you more flow, but still, I like the effect. You can still marble. And the white dot here is me experimenting with the pearl mixative. So this is pearl, but I didn't get it to flow the way I wanted. So it's just sort of a blob. But on the other hand, this could be a moon or maybe a flower. And here is that same pearly, some blobs here. But I wanted to try out the pearl. Same here, got a bit more flow with the pearl here and use a different color palette, as you can see. So then I thought, okay, I think I have the gist of it. So let's do a larger tag. So these I cut in half. So I decided to do an entire one. So this is the larger one, which I really like how it turned out, also because of the color palette, and I did get some more movement out of my pearl, as you can see. So these are not the alcohol pearls that Tim Holtz has on the market now, but this is the mixative that he has. So the alcohol pearl mixative versus the alcohol pearls. Well, just watch his video if you want to know all about that. But this is what I had in my stash. So use what you have. These were all of my experiments with inked and painted backgrounds on black paper and on the distress tags and on the Manila tags with alcohol inks and with distress inks and oxides and paints with some texture paste, embossing glaze, and last but not least, an example of how you can use these backgrounds. So I hope to have inspired you with these ideas. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed watching those. I will be posting them, as I said, on my blog with all of the steps, and I'll also show them on Instagram, so you can follow me there. I am Katja's Craft on Instagram. And my blog, well, I will put the link, of course, at the end of the video. So tell me what you think, and share, like, subscribe, all of those goodness. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.